Dear friends, welcome to this reflection for Easter Sunday. Dear friends, there is a story of a prisoner who spent all his life in a dark cell. One morning, he heard footsteps. The door creaked open and light flooded in. And a voice said, "You're free." But the man didn't move. He just sat there. Do you know why? Because after all these years in darkness, he could not believe that it was true. He could not believe that it was the day that he was free. My dear friends, Easter morning is exactly like that. The door of the tomb is open. Light has entered. And yet, many of us are still in the darkness of fear, we are still in the darkness of doubt, and we are still buried in despair. My dear friends, in today's gospel passage, we see that Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb early in the morning. And she doesn't go with hope, nor does she go with expectation, but she goes with grief. And then suddenly, she realizes that the stone is rolled away, the body is gone, and so she runs to John and Peter and says, "They have taken the Lord and we do not know where they have laid him." My dear friends, notice this very carefully. The first reaction to the resurrection is not joy, it is confusion. Then what happens? Peter and John run to the tomb. John arrives first, but he waits. Peter then enters and he sees the cloths. Then John enters. My dear friends, and then the gospel says he saw and he believed. What did he see? He did not see Jesus, but it was just an empty tomb. And yet something clicked in him. My dear friends, once a young woman received a message from a doctor after a long period of illness. She had been sick for more than 5 years and somehow the disease did not seem to get cured. And the doctor had sent her the reports of the latest test, and it was written there, "All your reports are clear." She could not believe what she was seeing. She read it once, she read it twice, she read it a third time, and then she said, "I couldn't see the healing, but I knew that something had changed." My dear friends, that is Easter. You may not see everything clearly, but something has forever changed in you. In today's first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, Peter makes a powerful realization. He says, God shows no partiality. And this is quite revolutionary. Why? Because the resurrection is not just meant for a few. It is not just for the holy. It is not just for the deserving. But it is for everybody. A teacher once told his students, "The sun does not choose where to shine, but it shines on the rich and the poor. It shines on the good and the broken. It shines on the faithful and the struggling." That, my dear friends, is Easter. The risen Christ does not only belong to a select group. He comes for all. Even for those who doubt, even for those who fail, and even for those who run away. And my dear friends, in today's second reading from the letter to the Colossians, St. Paul tells us, if you have been raised with Christ, seek what is above. In other words, live differently. My dear friends, Easter is not just about something that happened to Jesus. It is about something that must happen in us. It is said that an eagle was once raised among chickens as an experiment. It ate like them, it walked like them, and it lived like them. One day, someone lifted the eagle and pointed it towards the sky. At first, it resisted, but then something awakened. It spread its wings and it flew. My dear friends, many of us live like that eagle. We don't realize that we are made for something higher. Very often in life, we settle for the less. We settle for what is easy. We settle for comforts. But Easter tells us you are not meant for the ground. You are meant for the sky. And my dear friends, what is the meaning or what is the message of the empty tomb? My dear friends, the empty tomb is not just proof. It is an invitation. It tells us that death is not the end, that sin is not the final word, and it tells us that darkness does not win. A man once said that in life he had gone through a very painful failure. Everything had collapsed, his career, relationships, and his confidence as well. He said, I thought my life was over. But slowly, through small steps, through new opportunities and new strength, he began to rebuild his life. And years later he said, what I thought was my end became my beginning. That, my dear friends, is the resurrection. God specializes in turning endings into beginnings. He turns graves into gardens and he turns life into death. My dear friends, on Easter morning, the tomb is empty. Christ is risen. But the real question is, what will you do with the news? Will you remain in fear like how Mary was at first? Will you stand wondering like Peter? Or will you believe like John and run towards a new life? My dear friends, a child, after attending the Easter Mass, once asked his father, what does it mean that Jesus is alive? The father was confused at first. He did not know what answer to give. So he thought for a moment and said, it means no matter how dark your life becomes, there is always a way back to life. My dear friends, today the tomb is empty, hope is alive. And from this day onwards, nothing, absolutely nothing will be the same again. Amen.